Hi, my name is Flip Awesome Aguilera, and welcome to WEYT, the show where I find interesting people just like you and discover what's going on between their ears. Now, let's get to know one another. What's going on, WEYT family? It's Flip Awesome Aguilera, and today's mantra is, if information was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six-packs. It's in taking action that life manifests what it has to offer. So hopefully you take that with you while you're taking action on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And as you can see, I have a beautiful face. I love this face. I love this person. This is Melissa Blundell-Osorio, and she is somebody I met years ago already. It might be almost even 10. It doesn't even feel like it. And we met in a mastermind group. And we also used to go to this other group called Accent Club. Just our friendship has just evolved so much deeper and more, let's say it's a valuable relationship to me. And I love it. Meli, thank you for being my friend and for being in my life, but tell the people more about you.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And the feeling is mutual. I mean, Flip is one of my very favorite people in the world. Has been such an incredible friend over the years and one of the most amazing and interesting and charismatic and just supportive and best people I know. And so, yeah, definitely one of my favorite people. And so, yeah, super excited to be here with you today talking about what's engaging our thoughts. A little bit about me. I work at the Wilzig Erotic Art Museum, formerly known as the World Erotic Art Museum. I'm the director of education there. So I put together all our programming so that people in Miami, or actually now because we're online because of the pandemic, now anyone who wants to actually join us virtually can explore a wide range of topics related to human sexuality. And then I also organized an event called Nerd Night Miami that Flip is probably one of our like diehard attendees. He's there every month and he's presented at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, which is currently on hiatus again because of the pandemic, but we might bring that back virtually soon as well. Yeah, I'm a person who is curious and loves to learn things, and I think that's something that we share.
Before we even get into the main question, how did you even get into being the education director for Wilzig Erotic Art Museum? Like, how did you get so entrenched in human sexuality?
Yeah, that's something that I try to figure out, like at what point that things sort of shifted in that direction. And I don't know that there was any sort of like one thing. I think it was sort of like a gradual building of this was something I wanted to do, and it got to the point where like I think I just couldn't deny it any longer. I definitely was impacted by the Museum of Sex in New York, which is a museum that I love. It's a museum dedicated to the history, evolution, and cultural impact of human sexuality. It explores a lot of human behavior around sexuality, and it was just so it just stayed with me the first time that I ever visited. It was something that I think I just kept going back to over time until I got to the point where I was like, I had a lot of stories, I think, about like why I couldn't or why I shouldn't go down that path. But there was a moment where I was like, I can't deny this. This is what I want to do.
Would you say it chose you?
It does sort of feel like that, yeah. I like the conversation around like, Oprah is a billionaire, but she still goes to work every day, and Warren Buffett's a billionaire, and he doesn't have to work another day in his life, but he still goes to work every day because he loves what he does.
Yes.
So if you didn't have to work every day, what would you still get up and go do? Like, what motivates you? And this to me feels like that. Like, even if I didn't have to work every day, it's still what I would want to be doing.
And I remember when these were just goals for you. I remember when these were goals and you were like, this is what I want to do. And
yeah,
here you are. So congratulations on saying it
Thank
and
you.
being it.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be possible without the support of my incredible community and my friends. With you and Shaka was also like a huge help. Our friend Shaka, and so yeah, it's only possible because of the people that I had around me, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's get into it. Are you ready?
Yes.
What's been engaging your thoughts? There's a lot going
I
on,
mean,
so.
there's a lot going on. Yeah, there's for sure a lot going on. So the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement has definitely been engaging my thoughts, and definitely I think on a daily basis trying to figure out what's the best way to support and the best way to contribute something positive. And so yeah, I think that's been a big thing. And just how, I mean, 2020 as a year has just been so intense, and it seems like there's so many things that are up in the air, and trying to figure out what may lie ahead has also been engaging my thoughts.
2020 does seem like a year that is going to bring some tremendous growth, because it is through, and you tell me what you think about this, but it is through discomfort that growth happens.
Yeah.
And how do you think, because for all intents and purposes, if people look at you, they're going to think, look at this white girl. Now you're Puerto Rican, right? So
Yeah.
just tell a little bit of your story of, being Puerto Rican, but, being super white, and how that plays in your life and your experiences.
I grew up in Puerto Rico. My mom is from Puerto Rico, and my dad was from London. And so I was the product of an interracial, intercultural relationship. And I think that um, definitely had an impact on me growing up, just that experience. I think it's pretty common for bicultural kids to have to sort of deal with issues around identity and trying to figure out like who. I think in general people sort of like go through moments where you need to figure out like who they are, but I think especially for bicultural and biracial individuals, it can be highlighted because it can be very obvious at times when you do fit in or not fit in with different groups. And so that was something that when I first moved to the States was probably a huge culture shock for me when I moved to New York when I was 18. And I had a very difficult time just because it just felt like race in the United States was such a different animal than race in Puerto Rico. Not to say that there isn't racism, because there absolutely is, without a doubt. Like there's racism in Puerto Rico, but it felt much more polarized in the United States. There was much more of an emphasis on people wanted to know, like, where were you from, and where are your parents from, and what's your background, and all this. That there was a lot that was very challenging for me as I was first experiencing it when I first moved. And so I definitely I know without a doubt benefit from a ton of white privilege. That's not something that like is even a question. I know for a fact that I benefit because of the way that I appear.
How do you feel that how do you think that privilege has manifested in your life?
I mean, I think in general, the way that white privilege manifests, I think people aren't suspicious of me if I'm walking in a store. I don't think they just have certain assumptions about me based on the color of my skin but that my sister and my mother, who are darker than I am, probably don't benefit from those same assumptions.
Have you
And
ever
so
spoken to either one of them about that?
we've definitely had conversations. Like my sister, like I like wearing hoop earrings. I wear hoop earrings pretty often.
That's
And
so
my sister,
Puerto Rican of you.
it is, yeah. It's definitely like a cultural thing. But my sister has expressed that like she doesn't feel like she can wear them because she thinks people will look at her a certain way if she does wear the hoop earrings. And so, yeah, it's such a tricky and delicate and loaded topic.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think that you can do as an individual to try to put more, like Gandhi said, right? What's the change you can be in the world to try to manifest a world that you would like to live in?
So I think, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot in the last several days. And actually, so when I first moved to the States and when I was in college, I was part of a peer educators group where they would train students to do different workshops and stuff like that. And I was part of the multicultural education and programs peer educators group. So we would do a lot of workshops on like diversity education and cultural competence and social justice and that kind of thing. So I feel like those principles have stayed with me, and I looking for people to speak at the museum or when we're doing certain topics, I'm consciously try to make sure that we're bringing in people who are not just all straight white guys, but we have a diverse group of speakers, that we're touching on topics that are universal, that are open and available to everyone, or that touch on topics that maybe don't get touched on in other places but should be explored, but that it's a place that's welcoming to everyone. And then I think just in my everyday life, I feel like things have shifted to, at least in like the diversity education space, where the focus is really on just highlighting and emphasizing the voices of the people who are most affected. So I know that I feel like, especially in Puerto Rico, things have, in the last 3 years, there's been so much happening with the hurricanes and the protests and the earthquakes earlier this year, that whenever someone else would tell me something about the situation in Puerto Rico, or they would post something and I'd be like, oh, like you don't understand, like like there's just no way they could possibly get it because they're not from there. They don't have the history or, like all the feelings that come with it. And so I, as much as what's happening now makes me feel terrible and it's breaking my heart, I know that it's nowhere near what Black people are feeling right now. And those are the feelings that need to be focused on. And so trying to highlight people in the Black community and what they're doing and what they need over what I might be feeling.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. Now, sexuality has to do a lot with the human body, the human figure. What have you been doing when it comes to your mind and body? Like where are your thoughts leading to when it comes to your mind and body lately?
So my mind, I feel in some ways I'm actually kind of taking a break. Like when it comes to my mind, for a very long time, there was no reason for this, but I just had this story of like, if I'm going to read something, it has to be nonfiction. It has to be something that I can learn from, something that I can like, apply in my life. Actually, very recently, I started rereading the Harry Potter books and actually just reading sort of like fiction in general and just giving myself a break that way. I know you're a big Harry Potter fan.
And how's that going for you so far?
It's really fun. It's been a very long time since I read them the first time, and so there's some parts that I actually don't really remember, and so
How far along are you on the journey?
I just finished book 4.
Okay, so yeah, now things are going to start to get crucial.
Yeah.
The pandemic has started in the Harry Potter world.
And so just, reading more fiction and just doing something that's sort of fun that way.
So in that fiction that you're reading, what are you finding are the parallels to real life? Like how, because as they say, art imitates life and life imitates art. So although it's a fictional story, how relevant are the underlying topics that are coming out in these fictional books that you're reading?
So I just finished book 4, and so, Voldemort is back, and the Ministry of Magic doesn't want to deal with the fact that he's back, and they're kind of in denial. And that's definitely, I think, what happens in our world.
That is happening in our world.
IRL, yeah, exactly.
From your perspective, that's what is happening with this whole George Floyd incident. It's that, Voldemort is there, but you don't want to admit it. And until you admit it, you can't do anything to remedy it.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's exactly it.
All right. So how about your body? What's going on with that body?
So have a couple of projects. You know that I'm trying to learn to roller skate.
Okay.
And
How's that going?
I still need more practice. I feel like when I'm in the little area by my house where I go practice, I feel fine. But when I'm anywhere else, like in a park where, it's not like perfectly paved
Even.
or anything like
Yeah.
that, it's 100 million times harder. So I know actually the skating rink is opening up in, I think, next week or maybe the week after. And so my plan is to go there and practice there. But
We might
yeah,
have to practice not social distancing and go skate with you.
yeah, I
So
need someone to grab onto as I'm like falling.
we'll make it a WEYT and WEAM
Yeah,
coming together
yeah,
and not social distancing and exercising and roller skating.
yeah.
So since the last time I saw you roller skate, how much by percentage, how much better do you think you've gotten?
25%.
Okay, that's a good percent right there.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, everybody, when Meli says that she is a beginner roller skater, she is not kidding. This is very, very, very beginner. I was there during part of her journey, and I got to see. And it goes back to the mantra that we are saying today, right? It's
Yeah,
in taking action that life is going to manifest what it has to offer.
yeah.
So keep on keeping on. During COVID, during civil unrest, what is that doing for the museum? What's it doing for your career?
We were closed to the public for a while because everything was closed down. We took our programming online, and it's actually been maybe like the silver lining. We've had the ability to collaborate with some people that we normally wouldn't be able to because they're not located in Miami. They're either in Europe or somewhere else in the United States. But because we're doing it virtually now, we actually can do programming with these different people who are around the world. And so that has actually been really, really fun and a nice, something good that I think has come out of everything. And to the point where actually I think we might end up keeping the online programming in some capacity, even after we can do programming in the museum again, just because it has been so much fun and it has added a real positive element. The museum did reopen. Our numbers are not great at the moment just because there's
Well, there's curfews now. There's
yeah,
there's uncertainty. There's more uncertainty.
yeah. So we're operating with limited capacity, limited hours. We're still not doing programming in the museum because we still can't have large groups of people. So we're still doing our programming online. It probably will continue like that for a little while. Yeah, we have to adapt.
So now tell me what's been engaging your thoughts when it's coming to your relationships with yourself, romantic, and just life in general, business, all relationships. How have they been evolving and adapting during this time?
So that's been interesting, I guess, just because I mean, with lockdown, it's definitely my love language is physical touch for sure. And so just like with my friends, not being able to see them and hug them has
So
been
just in case the people don't know what it is, let's dive into a little bit about love languages. Yes.
so. Is his name Gary Chapman? I think his name is Gary
Yeah.
Chapman. He's a relationship therapist who developed this model based on the idea that people express love in different ways. And he identified 5 ways that he calls the 5 languages that people understand and give and receive love. The 5 languages being acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts. Which one am I missing?
We're going to have to Google the cat knows.
The cat knows. She's physical touch. Oh, quality time.
Quality time. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm definitely an act of services.
I can see that. Yeah.
So how are those relationships going? You said they were interesting, so expand.
So yeah, just I mean the challenges and like not being able to see my friends or give them a hug, and the times that or even my family, like I haven't even been able to go see like my grandmother, who I typically would go visit at least once a month, but she's just very high risk for COVID because of her age and her health history. And so that has been incredibly challenging.
And how is she feeling? Like, how is she getting through this time?
So, I mean, I think she, the kind of person who always has a good attitude about things, but I think she is feeling it, you know, not being able to visit with people and just being more isolated. But yeah, so that's been hard. It's also something that I've actually been struggling with, is the fact that all my friends are moving. So a number of actually most of my very good friends at this point, I have left Miami and moved to other cities. And all my close friends that are still in Miami are planning to leave.
But one of the last conversations we had in person was you saying that you wanted to leave Miami. So what are you thinking?
So I think it will probably happen.
You think you're coming to Colorado Springs with us? And you're going to stay?
At least.
You're going to stay? You're going to be like, oh, I need to live in these mountains.
I've never been to Colorado, so I don't know what it's like. Mm-hmm. But I will visit for sure. I have to see where I can open up a sex museum.
So do you think that's something you want to do, is open up a sex museum in whatever other city you end up in?
I think it could be fun. It could be interesting. Inspired by this museum that now I'm blanking on the name. It's a world-class art museum, but it's in a small town in Arkansas, I think.
Wow. The home of Walmart.
Yeah. No, it's actually, I think, funded in part by the Waltons.
Okay.
But the idea being that why are there only, you know, these world-class museums in large cities, and everybody should have access to a museum like this to be able to go see, you know, incredible works of art and be exposed and everything that comes along with that. And so they opened up this museum in the small town in Arkansas, and it transformed the community because it was something that they didn't have there before. And so I think sometimes about what would it be like if, I mean, currently there are very few sex museums in the world, and in the United States, at least where they're located, are already in like large liberal cities. And what would it be like if there were other sex museums in other locations, and how could it influence the towns that they're in?
So write that down on your life list on things to cross off. And I got your back 110%. You let me know how we need to brainstorm that.
Oh, perfect.
So now,
you know, $4 million.
Just a couple, but you're gathering a network.
Yeah.
So tell me, who is a person that you would like to speak to, dead or alive?
Ooh, I think the first person that always pops into my head is my dad. My dad passed about 6 years ago, but he and I had a really great relationship, and we were very similar, and there are lots of things that I still wish I could still talk to him about and ask him. And so if I had the opportunity, he'd definitely be, I think, at the top of the list.
So what are some of the things that you think he instilled in you that you are carrying with you?
I think my dad for sure instilled in me my sense of curiosity. My father was brilliant, like the smartest person I've ever met in my life. He had a PhD in biochemistry, and he was just always reading, just incredibly knowledgeable on so many different things. Like I really felt there wasn't anything he didn't know, especially as a little kid. Like, you know, he just knew everything. And so I would always go to him with questions, you know, either the definition of a word or like a question about anything.
Yeah.
And he knew the answers. Like he could have just told me, but he would never just tell me. It was always like, okay, well, let's go find out what the answer is. Like, let's go, you know, look it up in the encyclopedia, or, you know, look it up on the internet, or, you know, see what else we can learn about it.
So you would say he taught you the basics of how to learn.
Yeah, for sure. No, he valued education for sure. At times it was frustrating to me because sometimes I was like, oh, like, come on, just tell me. Like, I just want to, like, I don't want to spend 20 minutes on this. I just want the answer.
Yeah.
But he would never just tell me. It was always, you know, the process of discovering.
Discovery, yeah. Awesome. That's fantastic. You know, as a parent, I guess I try to instill that a little bit more, but now my kids are teenagers and they don't listen to me as much. But I wish I would have had that wisdom younger so that I could have instilled it at a more fundamental age for them.
Mm.
But I would say that hopefully the life I lead now, is a very big example of be curious, and don't think you know
Yeah,
the answer, just be curious.
yeah.
So now, can you tell me what are some of the resources that have inspired you the most throughout your life?
I think Esther Perel is a writer who is incredibly influential. Her book's Mating in Captivity, and I just finished her second one, The State of Affairs. The way she writes about sex and love and relationships, it's just
Yeah,
so
it's
incredibly
awesome.
beautiful.
It's so
Yeah,
amazing, her communication style.
yeah.
But so now that you finished reading The State of Affairs, what did you think of the overall message of that book? Because I thought it was fascinating. I really enjoyed reading that book.
I did. I really enjoyed reading that book too. There was something about it. I definitely felt like I took a lot from it, but there was also I don't really consider myself to be like a gossipy person, but there was it felt like, when you're reading like all the drama and you're like, oh my God, he did that. And like,
Yeah.
can you believe it? She said this, and entertaining in that way. But also I think you could take away, or I took away a lot from the book about, I don't know, like the effort that goes into relationships, that people are human, that,
Yeah.
they're,
That's what I think took out of it is that just, that everybody is the other and everybody is also themselves, right?
yeah.
Like the story that just off the top of my head when I think of that book that I remember immediately was the one example that she gave of a couple it was the man and the woman, and he was married forever until he died, but for about 30 years he had an affair with
Mm,
this other lady and they never got caught. You know how some people think, oh, well, when you're cheating you're gonna get caught and karma's gonna get you. Well, in this instance, karma never got to anybody. And the only person in the whole world that knew that that relationship existed
was the
was the
daughter.
daughter.
Mm,
And when the daughter knew who he was, like she knew him because, when she spoke about her mother, she's like, the only person that my mother ever loved like that was that man. And he loved her back and he supported her and they supported each other. They had a beautiful relationship, but it was just in the shadows through the whole
mm,
relationship, and neither one of them seemed to really have a problem with it. It was fine. But when the mother died, he's the one who fronted everything because he was pretty well off and he was doing well for himself. But when the mother died, or the mistress, for lack, just to
mm.
put the terminology, he paid for everything. And then when he died, the daughter of the mistress went to his funeral, being the only one that knew. And she was talking about, or at least Esther was talking about, how the daughter was feeling when everybody was up talking about the husband, saying, oh, he was such a good
They took
father and he
the
was such a
father.
good husband and such a good, philanthropist and all this. And how the daughter had a feeling of, but there's this other thing that none of you ever know about. But when I was thinking of that part, I thought to myself, well, just because he had that other relationship, did that make him any less of a good father and a wife? He was still a provider, and he was still a good father. He was still a philanthropist. You can't take any of that away from him. It's just, I guess, comes back to something that you and I have spoken about many, many times, but it's the story that you want to tell yourself about the 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 thing that's going on. Well, Esther really brought it to, these are human people that are living human dramas and they mess up, they do all types of things, but there's no way that an affair is supposed to be. There's no supposed to. These are just people and they're doing what they do.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that one?
I mean, I felt for the daughter for sure. I think she was having a difficult time with it, because she wanted the acknowledgement and the legitimacy. I don't know. I think I had a different interpretation of that story than you
So
did.
so tell me your interpretation.
I thought it was a sad story. I didn't think it was it was painful for her daughter. I don't think it could have been a healthy thing for her because that was their relationship that was modeled for her. And Esther Perel herself says that she doesn't, advise anyone to have an affair, the same way that she doesn't advise anyone to, what's
Well,
the analogy she
does
uses?
she really advise anybody to do anything, or does she just communicate to the people, this is what I'm seeing from both of you.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with this energy?
Well, so I think my favorite part, what I took from the book, was that it's very human to um, get to be excited by feeling like you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
fun when you feel like
It's
you're.
an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Like you feel alive. Some people, right? Even you could have a great relationship, it's a happy relationship, and there's still a thrill that comes from having an affair. Something that I think was really insightful is like people can do that. They can have an affair and get that feeling and do something that's damaging to their relationship, or they can work on the relationship and do something where they feel like they're transgressing together, where you feel like you're doing something you're not supposed to with your partner, and it becomes a bonding experience, which I feel like I've had experiences with partners where we were doing something that felt like, oh, this is not something we're not supposed to be doing, and it ends up just being really fun and exciting.
Well, that's probably the perk of being with somebody who is the education director of a World Erotic Art Museum. Here's the next question. If you could go back and speak to your 18-year-old grandmother, what would you tell her?
What I would tell my 18-year-old grandmother?
What kernel of wisdom would you, if you were just a person that
I
happened
don't
to just
know. That's
pop in and be like,
dangerous.
hey, I
What
have,
if you like say something and it like changes the course of her life and then I end up not being born?
I don't know.
That's dangerous.
So in other words, you would just sit there and observe, be like,
I think I would. I think I would just want to see, like how she lives her life. And my grandmother, yeah, I would have loved to see her when she was 18.
awesome. So are there any questions you would like to ask me?
Yes. If you had to write a book, what would it be about?
I would like to write a book about my wedding journey,
Ooh, yeah.
and call it what it's called on Instagram, right? Wonderful Undertaking. And I kind of have a template for it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of energy that went into that trip, into we traveled across the country. We went to all these national parks, and there was a lot of trials and tribulations. And much like this pandemic, if whoever your life partner is, if right now you're not doing too well, I'm going to be a little more blunt than Esther Perel and say, if during the tough times things are not good, they're probably not going to be that awesome ever, because it's the tough times that either bring you together or take you apart. And although that was a beautiful trip, it was tough. It was tough. Number one, I'm tough. I'm tough on myself. And because I'm tough on myself, sometimes I'm a little tough on my now wife, because I expect so much from me. So when, if I was one of these guys that was sitting on my butt playing video games all day and then demanded a lot, she could probably come back and say, well, you might want to be quiet because you're not doing much. But I am not like that at all. I am constantly trying to push my boundaries and push, 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 push. So then because I do that, I push her. Now it's all the pushing is for the better, but there was a lot of that during that trip. Like, okay, I'm doing these things and you're doing that thing, and what can we do to make things better? And there, at least for me, there's always a constant pressure on how can I be more efficient? How can I be better? And sometimes I think I need to learn how to back that off and just,
So I have that same feeling. I struggle with the same thing often, to be honest. Like there've been many times in my life where I feel like if I could just change the way like my mind is oriented, I would, because I think I don't know if I'd be happy. Life would be easier. You just wanted to get married and have a kid and have a stable, regular 9 to 5, or whatever it was. Because
but is any of that actually a thing in this world that we live in?
I think there are some people for sure who that's what they want, and that's what makes them happy. And I'm envious because I feel like it's such a, I guess it feels more attainable, or it feels like, I don't know, an easier
I
path.
think I had that in my first marriage, right? I had 2 kids, boy, girl, beautiful wife. I had the house, the pool, and all that stuff, but I don't think it was any easier to live that existence now.
Yeah, but I think you're not oriented that way. Like, I think you want, you're an ambitious person.
Yeah, but the lifestyle I led back then was ambitious in a different type of way. It was an ambitious party lifestyle. I was also
So when did
immature.
the shift happen for you?
When did the shift happen for me to being more?
Like a growth-minded person.
Well, it happened after my divorce from my ex-wife. So I am very much a believer of you need discomfort to grow. And that's why I'm saying 2020 is definitely a year where growth is meant, at least for people who think like me, because there's discomfort everywhere.
Yeah.
And how to live in it, observe it. And I don't know what to do either, right? Like, I don't know. All I know is the life that I lead is, I tell people all the time that I try to live the dream. What dream? The dream that Martin Luther King spoke about. That dream is, I will judge you. I will never say that I won't judge you. I will judge you by the content of your character. The rest of it, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you're not cool, or if something in my instinct don't get along and we don't get along, then hey, I'm not here to get along with everybody. But if I think you're cool, look, Shaka, black male, I get along with perfectly fine. Love that guy. You, super white chick. I don't care where anybody's from, Russian, and that's what makes Miami, as even though we're moving from here, what I'm going to miss about this place is the diversity, is that you have a Russian, a French person, a Brazilian, an Argentinian, a Venezuelan, a Puerto Rican, a black person. What we don't have a lot here are Asians, but I wish there were more of them just so we can have more of that influence. But I love the diversity of this place. And growing up here has made it so that diversity is my normal. That is my foundation. I want to be the change, and the way I can be the change is to work on myself first and foremost. And then I'm free to tell people this is what I did from my inner work. So it might not work for you, but it just might. But this is the things that I've tried. Awesome. So with that, we finally made it to the end of another episode of WEYT. Tell the people where they can find you.
Instagram as Meli Blue-Oso, Melibluoso. Also on Instagram as Nerd Night Miami, and the Wilzig Erotic Art Museum.
Awesome. So I will close it by saying the same thing I say at every episode, and that is time and attention is the greatest gift we can give to each other. You can also find more WEYT on YouTube. It's WEYT Show, and that's WEYT. On Facebook, it's just WEYT, WEYT. And on Instagram, it is also WEYT Show. So if you think the show is worth spreading, I would love for you to like and spread it. I don't want to make a bad pun right now, so I'll shut up now. But Meli, thank you. I love you. You're the best.
I love you.
I can't wait for our friendship to continue to grow. So till next time, here's to spreading more peace,